Wasabi guys, welcome back to another Commander video. This time we're talking about the new combos to come out of Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. But before I begin, first I would like to remind you all, if you have not already, please do subscribe to the channel. We're at 31,000 and I appreciate you in the community so much for helping me get there. The first card I would like to talk about here, this is the focus of our first set of combos, Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Now there's nothing exceptional about the saga, it's okay, definitely worse sagas out there for the mana, but for only 3 mana it's going to sit there until you're able to flip it. You want to flip it because once you flip it then the combos begin. Reflections of Kikijiki, that's right, we get the return of this ability. Obvious difference though is that you do have to pay 1 mana in addition to tapping it. These combos should be self-explanatory. If you understand how Kikijiki works, you're probably going to understand real quickly how to combo with Reflections of Kikijiki. These combos are going to be just a little bit different because we are going to need to pay that 1 mana in order to activate that ability over and over again so that we can go infinite, get infinite creature tokens with haste that are able to attack our opponents and help us win the game. First card to help us do that is Intruder Alarm. Creatures do not untap during their controller's untap phases, and whenever any creature comes into play, you untap all creatures. This is going to pair up with cards like Palladium Mirror because we'll be able to then tap for mana that we can then use for Reflection of Kikijiki's ability, which will get us another Palladium Mirror, which will then untap the other Palladium Mirror and Reflection of Kikijiki. We just keep doing that, we get infinite Palladium Mirrors that can attack all of our opponents. This is easily replaceable with any creature that can come into play and provide you with mana. Even if it just taps for 1 mana, you're going to keep getting copies of that creature, which will then untap the other creatures that tap for mana too, so not too difficult to understand that. There's also the benefit of using something like Ashnod's Altar because you're able to then sacrifice a creature to get 2 mana, which should still net you a gain of infinite creatures if you choose to use something like Zealous Conscripts. Deceiver Exarch is also an option, and anything else, even like Pestermite. The goal here being each time it enters, you're untapping Reflection of Kikijiki, you then sacrifice for 2 colorless, you float the extra mana so that you're still netting infinite creatures. And the other way to combo, it shouldn't be too much of a surprise here, this is a pretty busted ability. We can use Panharmonicon to benefit off of creatures like Pestermite, and pretty much any other creature that can enter and then immediately untap a target permanent. The way this works is that instead of sacrificing to something like Ashnod's Altar for mana, what we're going to be doing is untapping both Reflections of Kikijiki and a land. Since we'll be getting 2 Pestermite triggers, that's what we want to do, and we'll have plenty of mana to do the same thing. We're just going to get infinite Pestermites. And if you really wanted to, you could play with Mana Echoes. Shouldn't take too long to where you just get an insane amount of mana, and the cost of paying Reflection of Kikijiki is a joke. Now, if you wanted to play off color, usually this type of combo is included in something like a mono red deck or even a blue and red deck. You do have options outside of those colors. Great Oak Guardian is essentially going to be the same exact thing as a Deceiver Exarch, a Pestermite, but arguably better. You're untapping all of your creatures and you're giving them +2/+2 until end of turn. You just partner this up with at least 1 mana dork like Finhorn Elves here, and you're doing the same exact thing, but this time in green and red. And the last combo that you could pull off is with the card Time Stream Navigator. If you're able to create token copies of her, you're able to keep a copy of her out there on pretty much every turn, meaning you just pay that 4 mana each turn to sacrifice to get an additional turn until you're able to gather enough resources to just win the game. The next card we're going to be focusing on here is Ao the Dawn Sky. It is one of 3 dragon spirits that we're going to be talking about because they all have pretty decent death triggers. But for this combo, we are going to be focusing on the second mode. You put 2 +1/+1 counters on each permanent you control that's a creature or a vehicle. How this works is with the 2 cards Cryptic Trilobite and Nim Deathmantle, plus any type of free sack outlet. What you do is you sacrifice Ao the Dawn Sky to anything like an Ashnod's Altar to then put 2 +1/+1 counters on all of your creatures, one of them of course being Cryptic Trilobite. Cryptic Trilobite has an ability where you can remove a +1/+1 counter to add 2 colorless. Now you can only use that to activate abilities, which you will then use towards the Nim Deathmantle trigger. Since you get 2 +1/+1 counters on the Trilobite, you can remove both of them for 4 mana. 4 mana will be enough to bring back Ao, and you can just loop that over and over again. There are a ton of ways that you can win off of infinite death triggers, infinite ETBs, infinite power, infinite +1/+1 counters. There are a ton of ways to win with those, so this is going to be pretty flexible. The next set of combos, we're going to be focusing on the card Mirror Box, which is clearly a nod to the older card Mirror Gallery from Betrayers of Kamigawa. It's essentially the same thing, but 1,000 times better. because it only applies to permanents you control, so it's not even going to benefit your opponents in any way. Each legendary creature you control gets +1/+1, that's nice, but not super relevant. Each non-token creature you control gets +1/+1 for each other creature you control with the same name as that creature. So this benefits a ton of copy decks, and obviously anytime you get to ignore the legend rule, you're gonna have a ton of fun interactions. First one here is with the card Rionia, Fire Dancer. We're going to be comboing with her and Godo Bandit Warlord. At the beginning of combat on our turn, we create X tokens that are copies of another target creature we control, where X is 1 plus the number of instants and sorcery spells we've cast this turn. They gain haste and then you exile them at the beginning of the next end step. Well, if you do this over and over again with Godo, you will have infinite combats. I don't even believe you have to cast any instants and sorceries, it's just X plus 1, so you will always get another Godo that didn't already attack. I think the best way for this to work, however, is of course casting at least one instant or sorcery so that you get 2 Godos, making it just a bit faster. While we're on the topic of infinite combats, we have Aurelia the War Leader and Splinter Twin. You could also use Kiki-Jiki, they do pretty much the same thing. You tap Aurelia using Splinter Twin, or you tap Kiki-Jiki to make an Aurelia, so that you attack with that Aurelia token, and then you untap Aurelia, or you untap the Kiki-Jiki so that you can activate that ability over and over again, making infinite Aurelia tokens that keep giving you additional combat phases so you get more tokens, and it just repeats. Something that's not an infinite combo, it just does a lot of damage. Gisela, Blade of Gold Knight, and Blade of Salves. So you like double damage? Well, how would you like double damage 3 times? That's what you get here, since none of your Giselas are gone because of the legend rule. When you attack with Myriad, you will get copies of Gisela that are tapped and attacking your other opponents. They will each help to double the damage of the other Giselas. So if you have 3 Giselas out there, it's something insane. You're going to be dealing at least 70 damage with each Gisela. I'm not a math nerd, but I think that's right around where it should be. It's safe to assume most of your opponents are not going to survive that if they can't block it, so the combination of these two are pretty deadly. Another fun combo, this is one that is pretty difficult to take advantage of without straight up ignoring the legend rule. We use Metamai the Ageless and Identity Thief. Now, this was confusing to me at first until I realized exactly what's going on here. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, well, if Identity Thief becomes a copy of Metamai, then it still won't be able to attack on extra turns. However, Identity Thief's attack trigger is what causes it to become a copy of Metamai. And this condition does not say Metamai cannot deal damage during extra turns, it just says it can't attack. This will of course result in infinite turns. Another fun combo here, but nothing super practical unless you're playing a multicolor goblin deck. We have Muxus Goblin Grandee and Infinite Reflection. Infinite Reflection will make all of your other goblins that come into play copies of Muxus Goblin Grandee. That being the case, you reveal the top 6 cards of your library each time that happens, and you put all goblin creature cards with converted mana cost 5 or less from among them onto the battlefield, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. It's not a guarantee, but it's just something crazy I thought I would mention. We were just talking about extra turns with Metamai. We have another big combo here with Go-Shintai of Life's Origin and Second Chance. Go-Shintai's first ability is what we're looking at here, 5 mana and tap to return target enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Second Chance reads during your upkeep, if you have 5 or less life, you sacrifice it to take an additional turn after this one. A little bit hard to meet that condition, it's not super practical, but it's an infinite combo. Next card we want to focus on here is Myojin of Cryptic Dreams. Pretty strong ability. We are talking about copying creatures. You remove its indestructible counter to copy target permanent spell you control 3 times. And a core piece for this combo is the card Omniscience. You get to cast spells from your hand without paying their mana costs. The other card that's important here is Rescuer Sphinx. It enters and you get to return a non-land permanent you control to its owner's hand. That's it, that's what you want here because you get to return pretty much anything else, not just Myojin of Cryptic Dreams, not just the Rescuer Sphinx, but you want to be able to return all of your other strong enchantments, your other strong artifacts, creatures, so that you're able to get pretty much infinite of whatever you want. How this combo works is that you bounce Myojin back to your hand, so that you're able to replay it from your hand and replace the indestructible counter. Without the indestructible counter, this does not work. And since you are getting 3 copies of Rescuer Sphinx if you replay it, you're obviously going to be using one of those enter the battlefield triggers to bounce back Myojin of Cryptic Dreams. Just rinse and repeat until you have a ridiculous board. The next one here we want to focus on from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty is Junji the Midnight Sky. When it dies, you have two different modes to choose from. First one is each opponent discards 2 cards and loses 2 life. The second one is you put target non-dragon creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control and you lose 2 life. We're of course going to be taking advantage of both of those with Teysa Karlov. So all you need is at least one free sack outlet, doesn't matter what it is. Could be something like Viscera Seer, it could be an Ashnod's Altar. You want to sacrifice Junji and Karmic Guide at the same time, and choose the first mode to have each opponent discard 2 cards and lose 2 life. This is kind of a lockout. You will also get a second death trigger, so with the second one you can choose put target non-dragon creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. You will then choose Karmic Guide. Obviously this isn't something that's going to go infinite unless you have a way to compensate for that life loss, but I think you shouldn't have to do it too much. The goal here is to empty your opponent's hand and drain their life at the same time. If you have a higher life total than they do, then you're pretty much winning. Next card to build around isn't really anything new, but it's another alternative. It's the Reality Chip. It's an equipment jellyfish. You may look at the top card of your library at any time, and as long as the Reality Chip is attached to a creature, you may play lands and cast spells from the top of your library. Kinda holds it back a bit. Of course, we have other alternatives. By no means, if I'm talking about a combo here, am I saying that it's a better combo compared to something else. And the core piece of the combos with Reality Chip, it's Sensei's Divining Top, which will combo with pretty much anything else that lets you play cards from the top of your library. Of course, anything that says artifact spells, colorless spells, cost 1 less to cast, will pretty much mean you get to draw yourself out. If your Sensei's Divining Top is free, you can just keep drawing the card, put it on the top of your library, replay it, do it over and over. Of course, this is interchangeable, but the core piece here is Sensei's Divining Top, so you can play the new card Enthusiastic Mechonaut, does the same exact thing, makes your artifact spells 1 less. If you want to replace the Reality Chip, I think an even better commander option is Elsha of the Infinite, and this combo is pretty much easy to accomplish with anything that just lets you play cards from the top of your library like Future Sight. Next card here to focus on is the third and final Dragon Spirit to talk about in this video, Kairi the Swirling Sky. For this one, we're going to be focusing on that second mode, mill 6 cards when it dies, then return up to 2 instant and/or sorcery cards from our graveyard to our hand. Now how this works is that we use anything that can sacrifice for free, like Ashnod's Altar. In blue, we're probably going to resort to colorless ways of sacrificing for free anyway. And when it dies, we choose the second mode, milling 6 cards, returning up to 2 instant and/or sorcery cards from our graveyard to our hand. One of those is going to be Turnabout. The other one can be whatever you want, it could be for good value. We are going to be paying at the same time 4 mana to bring back Kairi. Now, in order for this combo to work, you have to have initially enough mana to pay that cost for Nim Deathmantle. After you bring it back, you just cast Turnabout, untap all of your lands, or all of your artifacts, whatever provides you with more mana. And then you just rinse and repeat with enough mana to constantly pay Nim Deathmantle's cost until you get the kind of value that you're looking for. This is infinite self-mill if you want it, which should help to set up a Thassa's Oracle. The last card we're going to be talking about here is a common, believe it or not, Aki Ember-Keeper. 2 mana enchantment creature, Goblin Warrior. Whenever a non-token modified creature you control dies, you create a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token. This is going to be a bit trickier to combo with, but I think it's a solid card even if you're not comboing. But if you want a creature to be considered modified, one of the easiest ways to accomplish that is with the card Lightning Greaves, because the equip cost of 0 makes it pretty much free. Nether Trader is a great creature because when another creature dies, while it's in the graveyard, we can pay 1 black mana to bring it back to the battlefield. And how this combo works is that we equip Nether Trader with the Lightning Greaves, and then sacrifice it to Phyrexian Altar for 1 black mana. Aki Ember-Keeper will then trigger, giving us a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token. We then sacrifice the spirit token to Phyrexian Altar to get 1 black mana, or whatever other color mana we need. We only really need to net 1 black mana each time we do this. Nether Trader will then trigger in the graveyard, we pay the black to bring it back, and then we rinse and repeat. We re-equip the Lightning Greaves, sacrifice it, get a token, and then do that over and over. This will give us infinite ETBs, infinite death triggers, and more importantly, infinite mana to do whatever we really want. So, if you enjoyed the video again, please do subscribe to the channel. This set has been pretty wild. There are a lot of combos, and granted, a lot of them are just repeats of older cards that can combo, but with just newer named cards like with the Kiki-Jiki combo and with the Reality Chip. But overall, I mean, I like this set. I think it has a ton of power, even if it's messy, even if it's all over the place. Kamigawa Neon Dynasty is certainly interesting. Commander Void here signing off. I will see you all next time.